Gibsons Resource Recovery and Recycling is located in the heart of Upper Gibsons, British Columbia, Canada. In 2001, we started Gibsons Disposal, and in 2003, started Gibsons Recycling. In 2005, we joined the Zero Waste International Alliance, and in 2011, we were part of a group that formed Zero Waste Canada. If we are to get to authentic zero waste, we must view how we manage our discards through an entirely different lens. This is our grassroots story on how any community can do this. So, how does one actually create a zero waste resource recovery facility? Well, to understand the formula, to know the secret sauce recipe, we have to go back in time to the beginning, where it all started. So, in the mid-60s in Montreal, a scrawny punk kid dropped out of school and with nothing but a grade 6 education. It wasn't long before that I realized without an education, you pretty much had little or no value. In 1970, I was fortunate enough to stumble upon a huge social enterprising experiment called the Bank of Montreal Youth Project. It was at the Bank of Montreal Youth Project that we were taught the basic life skills none of us really had, and most importantly, about knowing how to actually work together collaboratively. Each student was required to make a presentation to the group about something that was near and dear to their hearts. I chose to form a chapter of STOP, the Society to Overcome Pollution. I graduated in 1971, but the environmental bug is still with me to this day. After graduation, I worked at the Bank of Montreal head office in Montreal as a foreign documentary collections clerk. After a couple of years, was ready to branch out after realizing wearing a necktie felt more like wearing a noose. I started learning how to operate equipment, and in the mid-70s joined the Canadian Pacific team that were opening up a new division called CanPar, or Canadian Parcel Delivery. I worked my way through the ranks, eventually moving west to operate my own terminal out of Edmonton, then eventually operating a whole western division, which led to designing and building terminals across the 4 western provinces, as well as designing the transportation grid for the West. After several years at CP, I found myself living in Vancouver and started driving a truck for Smithwright Disposal. As one of my hobbies has been music, I started Breeze Records on Demon Street in the early 80s while I drove the night shift at Smithwright. Got ourselves into a bit of hot water painting the Chief Seattle mural on the side of our record store, and it was during this time I met Rick Hansen, who lived a block from me in Kitsilano. One thing led to another, and our little record shop became the official supplier of music for the Rick Hansen Man in Motion tour. Ran into Rick last year at the FCM conference in Vancouver, and it was through his inspiration that gave many of us at Breeze Records the gift of never quit and perseverance, the best lessons I've gotten my entire life. During the mid-80s, I bought a chunk of dirt and a small cabin, which was off the grid on Gambier Island. In the early 90s, my partner and I sold our record shop. I moved to Gambier full-time, taught myself how to operate a chainsaw, which morphed into operating a portable sawmill. One thing led to another, and then I became known as the log butcher. Slowly, I learned how to mill some pretty accurate lumber. I milled my own trees into my own lumber to build a house on another lot just above my green cabin. I took my portable log butcher show on the road milling in Delta, Fort Langley, Duncan, Salt Spring, Machosen, and Cobble Hill, to name a few places. Milling people's logs into their own lumber to build their own homes and cottages and outbuildings is a pretty cool experience. Lived on Gambier for a decade and a half before moving to Gibsons to start Gibsons Disposal, then Gibsons Recycling. And here we are, having some skills now to know how easy and cost-effective it is to build and operate a resource recovery center. Now we are taking on the organics riddle. Now, about 6 or 7 years ago, Barb and I started acquiring composters. We would test them in our backyard. We'd test them at the depot. All shapes and sizes. We tried them all. I doubt there's any composter on the market that we haven't tried. One of the things we've tried also is the Nature's Mill electric composter for indoors. One of the things that we found out, though, is that the outdoor ones, the bears love to play with them and squash them and Some attract rats. Then we found the Jora composter. This is the composters we now test and sell and are teaching people to operate, because this is really a superior product. And one of the things we've also discovered is that the bears have a really hard time getting into the Jora composters because they're made of metal. So this is the composter that we've decided is going to be our home composter of choice. One of the best products Jora has is the JK5100, designed and engineered for institutions like hospitals, schools, any place that has to have composting done indoors. Now the Jora composters are out of Sweden, so like anything from Sweden, we have to put it together. I didn't spill a drop of wine putting mine together. There's 3 different sizes, and this is what we should be focusing on, is comprehensive home composting, not collection in rural areas.
Okay, let's go and check on our progress. Let's see, we're halfway between week 2. We're at 140 degrees, which is about 60 degrees centigrade. Celsius? Whatever it's called. Anyways, there's our little batch of morning steam. And the pile is being reduced significantly. See you, Piper.
Now we're working with a new piece of equipment called the Green Mountain Technology Earth Flow Machine. Many people are probably familiar with their earlier products, and that was the Earth Tub. So one of the things we've decided to do is do some research on this company, which is on Bainbridge Island in Washington State, and we were delighted with what we discovered. This is a really good piece of equipment. So in doing our research, I went down to Bainbridge Island to look at their equipment and was quite impressed. Then I put a big search on looking for used equipment and found a used roll-off version of their Green Mountain Technology Earth Flow system. An old used piece of equipment that we picked up out of North Vancouver, and then last year brought over to Gibsons, and we've been rebuilding it ever since. Now we're operational. It's wonderful. We spent the better part of half a year rebuilding the second-hand used piece of equipment that we acquired in North Vancouver, the Earth Flow machine. And then about mid-May last year, we started our trials and testing the equipment. We're basically in the heart of Gibsons, right in the heart of Upper Gibsons, so being good neighbors is a very, very important part of our concept of resource recovery. So we basically changed bearings and the usual things that you always do, but we got it up and running, and now we're composting, and we're making fabulous product. All the testing's done, everything's in place, we've got her running, and now we're making soil. For those folks who can't home compost, they can bring their organic food scraps up to us for a nominal fee now. There are no excuses. And one of the things that we've discovered is if you build these things, people will come. They will use them. The trick here is that you've got to raise the bar. We've raised the bar. Now we're making beautiful soil. Now in our pilot project phase, we are making soil in about a month. And the nice thing about the angled auger, as you load from the load end, which is where you see that little blue handle, it automatically takes things down towards the other end very slowly, so that by the time you're at the other end, your material's cured, and then you just keep loading, adding daily. And now that we're up and running, we use our fleet of electric vehicles to go to each of our customers to pick up their materials. One of the things that's been an advantage for us is we go right into the customer's establishment, so we're building a rapport with the customer. There's no anonymity. It's one-on-one. These folks see what they're discarding and that there's an actual cost savings. It's kind of like the milkman. And this is how we pick up our commercial customers. The idea of picking up door to door is not a new one. One of the things that we've discovered is now there's a whole different level of understanding and recognition from our customers who are actually seeing how much they actually throw away. Of course, we have to power our fleet of electric vehicles, so we installed a bank of solar panels. One of the fringe benefits of this is we're generating enough electricity to run our compost machine. And from that, we're really kind of putting back into the community. And this is really how authentic zero waste works and how resource recovery is implemented. In every community in British Columbia, we could be doing this. Following the principles of authentic zero waste, we've implemented a pay-as-you-throw program for our residential customers. The more you throw, the more you pay. That's how zero waste works. But long before we start composting, we have to look at some of the other options by reusing our food, sharing our food, right? It's the only way we're going to change our own habits is by trying to do things other than lift, lid, and throw. Our finished product is now starting to be sold, and it's again a very wonderful handmade product. It's made right here in Gibsons. There's very, very little trucking or needless transportation. It's not hauled far, far away to some far-off processing facility. It's handled right in our own community. And one of the things that we've chosen to do is look at what works best for home composting and what goes into our earth flow machine. The bag-to-earth system works in both machines. And now what we're doing is also having people drop their food scraps off at the yard for a nominal fee. This is not hard. Anybody could be doing this. Okay, so now we're coming full circle on finding stuff that folks throw away and finding value in it. Many of you will remember we started styrofoam recycling years ago. Meat trays, egg cartons, food containers. We've turned them into planters. The irony here is now we're filling them with our own soil. We're creating jobs in our own community. Long before rural and remote First Nations, island access communities go into curbside organics collection, they have to be looking at what that means to our communities. Most of our communities have great black bear problems, rodents, critters. We shouldn't be attracting these kinds of animals into our communities. We should be discouraging them. We found out firsthand, our black bear that visits us all the time, he's given up trying to break into our Jora. He bent a leg. We straightened it out. Now that we're doing local community composting, we have to screen the soil. We took the old Gibsons rugby sled, practice sled that they used to use, and we MacGyvered it into a screen. We used an old, used electric motor, threw a chain on it, and now we're screening our soil so that we're making a premium product that we're selling back into the community. Waste as resources. We've seen practical, economical, sensible solutions to mandated curbside collection. Now we've seen examples of a system that works right inside our communities. The Green Mountain Earth Flow machines come in all shapes and sizes. You customize them to your community's needs. This is not hard. The cost savings from needless trucking alone will pay for this thing in short time. We create local jobs. This is how resource recovery works. At a high school in Washington State, they've got a earth flow right in their driveway in an urban area, and they filter everything through a biofilter. There's lots of options. It's basically customizing. Not every community in British Columbia has to have curbside organic collection. There's all kinds of variables that we could put into play here that fit our community's needs. Trucking everything out of our communities is not how resource recovery and zero waste works. We can build biofilters that actually work. We scale these things down that fit the needs of our communities. One of the things that we admire about different technologies is it's not one size fits all. Maybe what works in the city doesn't work in our rural communities. One thing is clear, is that we do have to get food scraps out of the waste stream, and there are alternatives. In closing, it's important for me to share this with you. Many communities claim to want zero waste. A lot of communities are picking zero waste rhetoric. In authentic zero waste, resource recovery design is the backbone of authentic zero waste. Another cornerstone for authentic zero waste is education, sharing information, working together collaboratively. This is not hard. Alternatives to mandated curbside organic collection are easy. They're cost effective. The jobs stay in our community. We help the environment. And I'm coming full circle here to show that if I can figure this out, anybody could do this. Thanks for your time.